I've been pretty fortunate on the channel. This is the 8th splitter that we've tried out and tested on this channel so far. Wanted to give you some early impressions of it. I think we've used it 7 or 8 times now, both with the single wedge option as well as the 4-way wedge option. Let me tell you what I think so far. One thing that you find standard on Eastonmade splitters, which I think is a big advantage, always give you big, large tires. If you're pulling splitters through the forest, you know how beneficial it is to have a nice big rim and a big tire on the back of the splitter. It's not an option on an Eastonmade. They come standard. I've only had to use it once, but having the ability to throw your tongue on either the front or the back of the splitter in order to move it around, big help. Smart engineering design. This 14 horse Briggs & Stratton, I'm pretty happy with it so far. It's incredibly fuel efficient. In fact, over all the videos you've seen me use, as well as the times I've used it in short periods that you haven't seen, I have yet to go through an entire tank of gas. 14 horse, lots of power, and even in the cold of February, it's a 2-pole start. Guaranteed every time. I know I probably don't have to mention it, but I love the efficiency of this simple design. The piston on this is really quick, really efficient, and I love the auto retract feature. I really like the design and the size of this receiving table. I know a few folks had suggested a few times that it should be wider or bigger, but at the end of the day, I can only reach so far. So it's a great size for me, a good working size. It's just a matter of learning how to manage or to move rounds or splits out of the way when you're coming through a second time. Nice and sturdy. The splitter has the option of having a 4-way wedge or a single wedge, as you see here. So far, I'll be honest, my favorite to date is the single wedge. Simple design. I love the height of this wedge, far higher than you would see on other splitters unless you have it customized. It's adjustable in case you prefer it lower, but I love the fact that you could throw a round through here and you get a nice big split. And what I found is it minimizes the number of times that a round or a block gets stuck on the wedge, like I've experienced on other splitters. Although I've used the 4-way wedge several times, I find that it's a little more difficult to manage rounds on the table with that wedge design. And given the fast cycle time on this piston, splitting it once and flipping them together and splitting it through for 4 splits is just as quick, if not quicker. And herein lies one of the favorite things I like about this Ultra. Unlike other splitters I've used, you'll notice that the pusher plate actually contacts or meets the wedge. On pretty much any other splitter I've ever used, there's always at least a 1/2 inch to an inch of a gap between where the pusher plate or the wedge stops and the log back or the wedge begins. What I find really useful is when you're splitting really stringy, nasty elm. On most other splitters, when you get that elm block through, you always end up with that bunch of strings just hanging on the back, and you're either forced to pull out the hatchet, which is why we always joke about bringing an axe or a hatchet whenever we split elm, or you've got to grab the round and flip it over and try to push through the last strands or strings on that block. You'll notice when we split elm on this Ultra, very seldom does the block ever need to be pushed back through or flipped, because the pusher plate meets the wedge and severs all of that grain. The pusher plate. The jury's out on that one. I know a number of people have suggested it needs to be bigger, and I could see if it was a little bigger than some of those 10, 12-inch rounds that I push through and I flip over and I try to push through for a second split. It would give me a little bit more height. Talked to Bob and Guy about it repeatedly. I'm not sure it needs to be bigger yet. Maybe a little bit, but it does its job. And after we did that last couple of elm logs, both Bob and Guy agreed 100% that it was fine the size that it is. So we'll have to wait and see. And I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you that I don't miss that hydraulic log lift on the last couple of Eastonmades I had. It's a big help for the back. We don't get a lot of big stuff here, as you know, but when we do get it, it certainly makes the job a lot easier. And just having the opportunity to pile rounds on it, to just pull them down one after another into that nice log cradle design that Eastonmade puts in those splitters, I miss it.